Hello, I'm Dr. Bernard Starr, your host for another edition of Active Aging, programs that highlight what vital, vibrant older people are doing to stay involved in all aspects of life. Their stories challenge the myths and show that once you pass a certain age, there's a second and even a third act in life. To prove the point, Sandra and Al Markham will talk about sex in the senior years with candor and wit.
Clearly, the frequency of sex is less.
Then you'll see Marilyn Kaplan, entertainer and cook, bringing her skills to senior residents throughout New York.
I roamed and I rambled.
And finally, the yoga group on Grand Street will show you how to laugh your way to better health. First, let's talk about sex and the senior. Pulitzer Prize winner Dr. Robert Butler and sexuality counselor Evelyn Resh will guide us. We will also hear from an older couple and people in the street. They all have some very definite opinions about when and if seniors stop having sex and other sexual matters.
They should never stop having sex. Enjoy as much as they can.
I think they never stop. But the thing is, you have to consider all the physical factors. But I think people never stop having sex in different ways.
I don't see that there's any reason why not. If people are healthy enough and they want to do it, sure.
I think that it is important. Love and intimacy are so critical to the human experience, and part of the reason for writing the book at that time was the fact that I had described what I call ageism or age discrimination. And one of the most striking forms was to kind of assume that older people had no sexual interest or any capacity for love making or any desire. And that clearly was not the case from my own practice.
As people age and they allow themselves more rights and permission to self-define, they are able to say, this makes me content, this is pleasing to me, without running the risk of an anachronistic reference point, which is the biggest problem that people have. As they age, they tend to use an anachronistic reference point that puts them in a stage of life that is not relevant to the stage they're in at present.
Clearly, the frequency of sex is less. And I think that's a natural development because as you age, things start going wrong in your body. You get more involved with going to see doctors and having operations and that take time to recover and pain and etc. So yes, it does stretch out, but the idea of sex and the desire for sex, it stays, it persists.
Even if we're just talking about people sleeping without their clothing on and stroking each other and touching each other or kissing one another or bathing together, these are intimate rituals that people will often say to me after 45 years of marriage or 60 years of marriage, this is our sexuality. This is our intimacy.
Cultures do change. I think that we may underestimate the extent of sexual interest and comfort of older populations. Some, depending on their religious background and the community from which they come, may be more problematic than others, but in general I think as long as people have an interest and it's genuine interest and have an important relationship, sexuality and intimacy are very valuable and important.
We just make more effort, whereas one time it would be 6 times a day and then years it would be 6 times a month and then whatever. Now it's very much more infrequent, but what we do is make dates, and we have what I call naked naps, where we know that we'll be together and that there's no pressure that we must perform, but generally we feel comfortable enough and happy enough where it works.
Well, we've been married, come Christmas, it'll be 43 years.
I'm 73.
And I just turned 80. You know, I think back on when we were first married, and Sandra mentioned before something about 6 times a day. Well, it wasn't 6 times a day
Yeah,
every
it was.
day. Not
every day, no.
I can assure you.
No, not every day.
So, you know, yes, there were those times. And But do I yearn for that, or do I hark back to it, or am I pressured into that? No, I don't feel that.
What about how you look? Do you feel self-conscious in that way? That you look different than you did then?
Yes.
You are?
Yes. You have to be self-conscious about it. My body is different. I've got scars. I've got things that,
Yeah,
I'm sure it's different.
I think that diverse ethnic groups are often more willing and able and consistently do embrace sensuality, which in all cases is your on-ramp to being sexual.
Young people don't like to think of their parents as, quote, doing it, unquote, and but that there's just an embarrassment about sex in general.
When you're a child, you can never picture your parents having sex, let alone your grandparents. But I'd say, being reasonable, I would say maybe 65, 70.
I think probably because our culture looks at sex as people who are well-defined and look good, and they probably think as seniors are people who start to not be as physically attractive. So I think that's where a lot of our the jokes and comments come from. But they come from people who themselves are not seniors yet, and I'm sure when they reach that age, they wouldn't want that joke to be made about them. So it's a sensitivity issue, and it takes a lot. It's about education as well, and just learning that you shouldn't make fun of people, because one day you'll be in that same position yourself.
Many young people, very young people, do believe that there comes a time when you stop having sex kind of automatically at a certain age.
And they certainly don't want to know about it.
Yeah, it is surprising that that would be the case. They forget that they too may one day be old.
In the United States, it's a very youth-based culture. And because of that, there is an element of degradation, I believe, and that I see, that goes on around elders and intimacy. Because somehow we make this conclusion that changes in body and in appearance are synonymous with changes in sexuality, but also not just synonymous, but equivalent to the absence of it.
On the other hand, the airwaves are bombarded with ads today for Viagra and Levitra and the others. So there is an encouragement that and some of those commercials say, you know, you don't have to stop.
The problem with these medications is that they are very infrequently prescribed with counseling.
Viagra should be understood to be a mechanical aid. It doesn't become a substitute for intimacy. If you don't have a good relationship, Viagra is not going to mean very much except from a purely mechanical point of view, providing blood in the penis to carry on sexual activity. Nor is it an aphrodisiac. It doesn't enhance libido. But if it's used properly, and if it's used in a relationship that's positive and the couple is consensual and they want to have a good relationship, but have been having physical problems of erectile dysfunction, then it's a wonderful new addition to life.
Does love come into this at all? Because it does for us. If there's no trust, if you're not comfortable, then it's a whole nother ball game. Most people who are older have their libidos also diminished, so I think there has to be another psyching that's going on. I don't know how to answer that, because for me, I love him and I trust him, and it's just a natural thing.
As long as one's alive and one cares at all about another person, that caring may lead to physical intimacy, which may not be intercourse, but it may be touching, feeling, sensual, but something that makes clear that it really does matter what this relationship is. And the idea that older people are not capable or interested or cannot be satisfied is inaccurate.
The intimacy might be better, I think. Just people are wiser, hopefully. You know, I think sex is not really what's important, it's what brings to it. And maybe the connection with that person would be in the forefront of the sexual intercourse. So I'm guessing that would be the most important thing, rather than the sexual act itself and whatever goes with it. Yeah.
I think that the closeness and the intimacy between us now is almost as important as the actual intercourse itself.
Yes, almost.
I said almost.
It's definitely harder for women. The sad joke of nature, so to speak, is that women live longer now in the United States by 5.3 years.
And their orientation around sexuality is sometimes very fixed in partnered sex as opposed to sex for one, to quote a great book actually by Betty Dodson. The sex for one model is very helpful for people who have lost mates. And so what I would leave you with is just a statement of encouragement to people who are aging and older, that this is all good news.
The spontaneity that existed when you were in your teens and 20s and 30s is not possible now. Preparation is required now. I mean, even the drugs that we were talking about, it requires you to take them an hour before. So you have to plan. And I think that's true about all the things that Sandra said, where you have to plan and primp yourself and make yourself work and work into it, slowly get into it.
Because the libido is not helping you. So you have to kind of remind yourself, hey, this is a good idea.
If my wife stays as beautiful as she is now, I think I'll be doing it when I'm 90, so.
It's good to know that both experts and the public at large agree. The subject of sex in seniors is no longer taboo. And in fact, it turns out that sex can be most satisfying in the later years. How about that?